You have to be able to relate. I see founders all too often build great tech. They're like passionate about the thing that they built, but they can't convey to the other individual the results. Like,
welcome to UpTech Report. This is our Founders Journey series. UpTech Report is sponsored by TerraLeap. Learn how to leverage the power of video at terraleap.io. I'm excited to be joined by my guest again, Enrico Palmerino, who's based in Boston. He's the CEO and co-founder at Botkeeper. Go back and listen to part one of our discussion where we dove into the product itself, how it is automated bookkeeping supporting CPA firms, accounting firms in doing what they do using a combination of machine learning, AI, and skilled accountants themselves. But good to have you again, Enrico. I want to hear more about your journey. This isn't your first venture. You actually mentioned at the last end of our first interview, 13 different ventures, 2 or 3 of them now being able to succeed. Take me back, like all the way to the beginning. What was the first product? Like, have you just always been an entrepreneur?
I think so. I think maybe you could say I've always been rebellious. Is probably a better way to put it. But yeah, I mean, as a kid, I was the kid who was like selling candy at soccer games and had like a hot dog stand, and then started buying vending machines and putting them in supermarkets and stores, and then had a landscaping company, and then a number of other drinks. I was doing energy drinks, like an energy drink distribution. I got into liquor distribution. I got like just a number. I had a number of small businesses, custom ping pong balls, like you name it. And then in college, one of those businesses was called Think Light. And it was like my end of freshman year, sophomore year. We started a business that basically automated lighting analysis and design we could 3D render very, very large properties in short order and allow you to customize with like a few clicks how you wanted to optimize the lighting level and where to put luminaires or lights within a building, and then what technology would get you the best results. So it was like LED, induction, fluorescent, et cetera. And that ultimately, in doing all this analysis, we got a lot of data, and then we used the data to patent and manufacture some of our own products in niche markets. And the long and short of it was, by senior year, it was doing about 8.5 million in revenue, and then went on to have a nice exit. And wow. Yeah, that let me start chasing other passions without having to beg others for capital, or call it mortgage my life with debt and loans. So
that is the place to be. But hold on a second. I want to go back for a moment, because you're referencing all these businesses you started with of the vending machines and liquor things and that. But then you get to software. Like, what did that just happen naturally? Like, what was the switch to a kind of a software company of analysis and analyzing all these things from these other businesses?
So I grew up in central Massachusetts. So I was out in like the sticks, and I think like it was just, as a kid, it was just very easy to conceptualize products, right, and hardware. And in school, when I got into college, I'd done some computer programming and enjoyed it. But in high school, like we just didn't have we didn't have great courses there, and I had other businesses, so I wasn't like on the computer trying to like learn how to program. But in college, I was doing basically using like an Access database to automate. We had a class project. It was go find something and automate that something. And I happened to see a guy walking around campus analyzing lighting and flipping through a catalog and taking notes down on graphing paper and drawing stuff. And it's like, that just seems like the catalog's a database, like a database that, and this analysis that he's doing, like, I don't know what he's doing, but I'll figure it out. I bet I could, use, being a math major, a number of algorithms to, compute it in an automated fashion. There you go. That was the founding,
just simple as that. So yeah. you see the idea for your actual first main company while you're in college as a college project that turns into the company itself.
Yeah. Yep.
You make it sound so simple.
That business, I got to hand it to Babson. They're great school, and afforded me a lot of flexibility, because running a business like that while trying to attend school would be very, very difficult. And so as the business grew and got popularity, it's a great trade-off. Like, the more successful it was, the more attention Babson got. Babson allowed me to have like some of my class projects where I was thinking about opening an office in Turkey. So here's 5 students that will put the business, plan together for you to do that. And so it was great. I got to do a lot of things in school that, help benefit my business.
That is probably not easy to replicate, but a nice position to be in, the symbiotic relationship. Now, for that, you founded it yourself. You were the only owner of
No, I
that.
was my co-founder was Dinesh Wadhwani. So it was
Gotcha.
we're, kind of college dorm mates. I
Nice.
think we were just workaholics, and that's how we found each other. Everyone told us, like, you guys never sleep. You're always working on these other ventures. You should meet. And the first day we met, I was like, I've got this idea. And he's like, that's awesome. We pulled an all-nighter, like working on it, and the rest is history.
The rest
And
is
it still runs. Like he and his brother have actually since taken over and continuing to run the company today. So. Yeah, it's
wow.
cool. It's cool to see the trucks drive by from time to time, or they just did a big project lighting up the Prudential Center in Boston, which is a pretty big building.
Not many founders who start something can say that it just continues to live on without them long beyond. So
So you
that's
got good people and good systems in place. That's the ultimate goal.
now
Build something that
from
outlives
there.
you.
Tell me, what was the journey then after that? Because you exited 2013, I think that's correct.
2011 or 12.
Gotcha. Oh, okay. So got your board of directors. I see right there. But then that's still many years until Botkeeper. So what was the journey in between?
So the biggest headache we had was just our finance and accounting keeping up and trying to find one. Don't I play an accountant on TV, but I'm not one in person. So finding, hiring, like, and getting the right skill sets, and then even then you're still limited by 8 hours a day, and to be able to get things done. And our business with that level of growth just had a lot of complicated account. And I always just wanted reports faster. I wanted greater analysis or detail. And I'd get a report right before I was going to a bank to get a loan. And I'd be like, shoot, these numbers, and this is like wrong. And where is the error? So basically I saw the opportunity to be like, well, let me get into cloud accounting. And so I joined a husband and wife in their practice. They had, started a small bookkeeping operation, and teamed up with them and invested money, and then grew a cloud accounting practice, and to solve that problem for SMBs. And then ran into, the glass ceiling. Like we had to turn away business, and we had clients who were booking onboardings out like 3 months plus in advance, just because you could only do certain aspects with people so fast, and the finding, the hiring, and the budgeting of this supply, and like, will the demand be there, and managing utilization rates of staff, just really hard. And so, yeah, that's where the concept for Botkeeper is born. Unify the app stack, make it simpler and easier for the accountant to manage their clients and get the work done, and then use that app stack as a data exchange to get data from the SMB, automate a lot of the processing with machine learning, and then relay back the result in an analyzed format to the SMB and the accountant to then be able to offer additional advice.
So you invest your money. You're like, I got to do something, and I was annoyed by accounting, so you just joined forces with other folks. And this is SmartBooks Corp.
Yes, this is SmartBooks.
Okay. To build this company, and then you start to realize, wow, scaling, we can only get to a certain point. There's issues with the stack itself, which then leads to the inception and concept of Botkeeper.
Yeah, and I mean, I attended a number of conferences, like these accounting conferences, and everyone's biggest problem, like top 2 problems, were finding talent and retaining talent. And I feel like if it was, say, said 3 times at one conference, it was said 5 times at the next one, 10 times at the following year. And you could just see it was this growing problem. And then I started looking at the statistics behind it, and accountancy, accountants going out into accountancy, it was down 20% year over year. And 72% of accountants that leave an accounting job leave the industry altogether. So they're not even, the pool is diminishing, and a lot of baby boomers are accountants and they're retiring. So yeah.
You saw the issue on a macro scale overall, that this was going to be an issue. So that leads to Botkeeper. Now, any 3, well, it wasn't the first one, or actually, I'll just ask point blank. Any 3 of these ventures, did you raise funds, or was always self-funded?
SmartBooks was totally self-funded, other than contributions of owners. the think like you could say we actually went out and tried to do like an angel round, and people were like, the concept, like, I don't get it. It seems like it'd be really complicated. And we're like, it is, and that's why if you can do it, it's going to be a big business. So we raise capital in the form of like loans, like lots of credit card debt, and all the things that I'd say like you really shouldn't do. And I was like personally liable for like $1 million in debt, and that could totally ruin your life
You were
at
liable for $1
18.
million of debt
Yeah.
personally.
On top of school loans and top of college loans, right? So like that could mess up someone's life for like a long time. And
Oh, you believed that much in it.
yeah, and we just, we knew it got to a point where like we then I think doubled that personal liability because we were just like, well, I'm kind of already screwed if this doesn't work out. So that's $2 million in personal debt. But it worked, and we got where we want to go with a lot of hard work and a lot of great people.
You made a mention earlier once you exited there, like then you didn't have to worry about debt anymore. Now it makes connection. You had it and you're like, now I don't have to worry about that debt anymore. Now for Botkeeper, did you raise funds for this, or did you also just self-invest? Or
So I self-invested in the beginning, and a lot of people are like, how did you build that? Like, how did you bootstrap Botkeeper and build that? And I'm like, it's not fair to really consider. Like, I know people who bootstrap. We bootstrapped in luxury boots. I put about $1 million of my own capital into it, which is like, you can call that a VC level, investment to get it off the ground. And then we went on to raise, like, since then, we did a 4.5 million seed. We did an $18 million A round. Then last year, we did a $25 million B round. So we've raised about 47.5 million to date. So it's building what we built is not cheap and not easy.
when it comes to that much development of the stack and the engine behind it, obviously you can't cheap out on both the developers or the folks to build it. And you're at I think you said in the last interview about three closing 300 folks
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. And we're still hiring. So check out our job postings.
I love that. So not a small team, but a big vision of where you're headed. Can you share any advice on this raising funds and being able to get that for other founders?
So I think like it starts with the story you're going to tell. So you have to be able to relate. I see founders all too often build great tech. They're like passionate about the thing that they built, but they can't convey to the other individual the results. Like, why is this great? What's the value it's providing to the market other than the underlying tech? So first, work on simplifying how you're explaining what you're doing with backup and supporting detail as to like the how and why. But leave that second. Like if someone can understand the concept and believes that this is solving a problem, people would pay money for it, then you can show them the technical how and why. And then two, if you're gonna go out and raise, you have to do it. It has to be like a full-time job, and you have to do it methodically. Like you can't casually raise money, because if you're casually raising, there's no incentive for anyone to pull the trigger now versus just kind of wait around and see what other people are doing and see how things play out. So you got to follow a process. Actually, I did a whole video out there called "How I Raised It." If you like Google my name, "How I Raised It," it's like a 45-minute talk I give about the process and the methodology to doing it.
One thing is funding. The next thing is actually building the team to make it happen.
Yes.
Now at close to 300 folks, or at 300 folks, what can you share of actually going at the very beginning? What was your first hire, crucial hire that you made?
So I looked at the people I knew, like my relationships, my network, and said, "When we build," and this is the other thing, great advice for entrepreneurs out there. If you're founding a company, you can't do it by yourself. You need a team, because while you're building tech, you're not selling, marketing, or operating. While you're selling, you're not doing any of the other, and so on and so forth. So find a team of like 4 people that can own those different chunks. Each don't overlap each other. And that's how you're going to move faster. So I looked at my network and it's like, this guy, Louis, who sold to SMBs. He understands it. He understands finance. He's like everyone loves him. He'd be great running sales. My sister and I, she was at SmartBooks with me, and we've done other ventures together. And it's like, she's awesome when it comes to marketing, and she loves building. Like she kind of taught herself how to program. So like, oh, she can help me out in those 2 areas. Then another friend of mine was a CPA, It's like he can make sure that like from a technology standpoint, from an operating standpoint, the result is accurate and where we need it to be. And then Justin DeBosch joined, and here's a guy who I met at an event who's just like had a plethora of information and know-how and could hack. Like he was not gonna, if someone told him no, it can't be done, he was gonna prove to you that it could. And so, with that team, we got it off the ground, and yeah. And then continue to just hire great people. That's the key to success. Hire people way smarter than you at everything in the business, and you can't go wrong.
So one piece is the funding to have money to get started. The next piece is to have a good team, but then you do need clients and customers. Working particularly in the SMB space, it does come to quantity in many ways in order to scale.
Yeah.
What are some tactics that you have found have worked really well in order to grow and market and get attention?
So one, you want all your clients to be raving, because if they're coming in the door and then going out the back door, it's an uphill battle that you're probably going to lose. And the more raving that they are, the more referrals that you're going to get. And if you can find means of like distribution, so we got heavily involved with associations and got well networked into different groups where people there were like, oh, you need bookkeeping, you use Botkeeper, and other people in those groups, oh, who do you use? I use Botkeeper. And so you start to build critical masses in small pockets of you being like the de facto choice. And so that works out really well. And then ideally, if you can find a channel to especially if you're going to be selling to SMBs, that can help you get a lot of SMBs for a low cost, because managing the LTV to CAC ratio is pretty difficult in selling to SMBs. And for us, we have a many to many. So we have relationships with partners that help us sell us into accounting firms. Those accounting firms have many, and there's many accounting firms, and those accounting firms have many clients. And so that's kind of the ideal.
Many to many. How long did it take you to develop each of those different verticals and channel partners?
A long time and a continued process. So because it takes credibility. You have to establish, and that's why if you start with like a pocket, you can start establishing some level of credibility and critical mass, and then that can be used as like it works. And look at all these people that love it. And when you're building the partnership, the first thing you should ask yourself is, how do I bring value to them? Like that's all I care about. Anytime we enter into a partnership, it's how do I generate as much value for you? And if I do that successfully, we can talk about generating value for me, because more often than not, who you want to partner with is more established than you are. So you just got to put your best foot forward to help them first. And if you do that well, they're going to inevitably help you.
That's powerful. For you as a leader, what's your typical day look like?
A lot of meetings, but I organize. So I try to block out like 2 days a week where it's just like I get to just think about the business and what we're doing and work on a few big projects or a few goals I've set for the quarter. I block out a day. I only manage the team 1 day a week. So, and I even say like I'm not managing the team. I'm a sounding board or providing advice or guidance on things 1 day a week. So I have a stacked day from 8 to 6:30 or so, and meetings back to back to back with different department heads and teams, and then what that lets me do is just I can be one track focused for that day on that sort of thing. It's grueling and I'm exhausted by the end. But then the other days, I'll have days where I've got meetings and it's like sales focused, but it's different. It's like I'm more working on the thing than call it like having a traditional meeting.
When did it transition to that? What did it look like at the beginning when you were a founder? How would you organize your days then? Or has it always been that way?
So I always carved out, basically it was like nights in the beginning when you're a founder and you don't have a big enough team, you got to be doing more and more of you got to be thinking and doing all the time. And so what I try to do is carve out like a day or two if I was lucky, but like a day of just thinking and working on big problems, and nights were dedicated to big problems and weekends were dedicated to problems. So I'd basically say like Saturday was work on the business, and during the week I'd be working in it, except for nighttime. I wouldn't touch email. I'd just be, all right, what's this next thing that we need to solve and how do we get there?
For you, also as a leader, where have you gotten good insight? Any books, podcasts, audiobooks that you can recommend?
Yeah, I mean, there's a ton of great books out there. One that I think puts for a lot of entrepreneurs, I think we're all a little chaotic and we get excited and passionate about things. And this idea of structure is, a little not our natural tendency or inclination. So a great book I'd recommend is Traction. It's kind of teach you the entrepreneur operating system. It's a good framework for just adding a structure to the business, which every business needs. So I highly recommend that. And then I've been reading a book about basically like living in the age of AI, which is pretty cool to see what the possibilities of that are.
If you go back to yourself, when you started the beginning of this venture, or even the previous venture, and you could tell yourself one thing, what would you say to yourself?
I'd probably just say make higher up, I think is probably like punch a weight class above where you think you need to be. So what we did initially, I think, was we'd hire people that would solve the problem and the need that we had today, and like they would have the skill and the background to support that. But what I found is like when I started to be able to hire people that were like they'd seen that and then they saw like 2 or 3 levels beyond that, those people, it was awesome because they would come in and they would be pulling Botkeeper up to a level that they were used to operating at, versus solving the problem today and then Botkeeper kind of pulling them up. So if you can find people that are a weight class or two above this current stage you're in, and convince them to join, then it does make a huge difference.
That's powerful
they have the learnings, right? They've already made the mistakes and they made them at the next level that you're hopefully going to achieve.
Yeah, that is powerful. To kind of close this out, any tech predictions that you want to make for the near term? What do you see coming up in the next year or two, or a little bit longer, 5-10 years from now?
Yeah, so from a technology standpoint, I think in an ideal world, I think accounting is going to become this. Is going to effectively run on blockchain, just because there'll be this, call it world global ledger, and this is like global distributed ledger, because ultimately, if enough businesses start kind of operating on one platform, and the platform structured the right way to store, map, learn off the data, tag it accordingly, the idea that like one client's credit is another client's debit there shouldn't be this idea that like you run in a silo and you buy and sell and expense things and you're selling to this other company, but they're having to do the accounting totally separately. It should just be interconnected. And I think, in 10 years, you probably have this globally distributed ledger that is widely used by the world. And the transactions are not siloed anymore. They're related.
That is a fascinating concept that would simplify a lot of things, but I wonder how transparency plays a role then. Does everyone know what everything is happening, and how does that affect?
You'd only know what's on your books because it's encrypted, right? So right. The other party would see the other side of the transaction. And in the ideal world, this would also be really great for governments too, because you'd eliminate this, call it tax loops or tax holes. And here I am, a business owner, saying like, yes, it'd be better if tax structure was totally simplified and there wasn't a lot of time spent, trying to game the system like that. Those resources could be used to, better the world.
So let's assume we're all in this blockchain. What's the role of a CPA or an accounting firm?
The advice, like it's one thing to get the data in there accurately. It's another thing to actually make sense of it. So to be able to like look at it and understand the trends and what does this mean for your business? Most entrepreneurs are innovators. They're passionate about the thing that they're doing. They're not an accountant. And so you need accountants that can tell them, while making this huge investment in machinery seems great right now, is it going to cripple your company and the ability for you to, hire even the salespeople that you need to get the units volume you need to grow into this machine you want to buy. So yeah, the accountant will always have a role, and hopefully more accountants go into the space because I think it's needed.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your future predictions, this insight that you've had from growing multiple businesses and the journey that you've been on. Thank you so much for your time, Enrico.
Thank you, Alexander. Appreciate it.
Now, definitely go back to listen to our first episode to understand more about Botkeeper and the cool things that they're doing. And you can also go over to botkeeper.com. We'll see you guys on the next episode of UpTech Report. Have you seen a company using AI, machine learning, or other technology to transform the way we live, work, and do business? Go to uptechreport.com and let us know.